Have you ever held a tiny grass seed in your palm and stopped for a moment to think about what is hidden inside it? That little seed may look dry, quiet, and almost weightless, but within it is the possibility of a living green blade, a thicker lawn, and a piece of ground brought back to life. In many ways, every seed carries a promise. But if that promise never appears, it can leave you wondering what went wrong. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, where we dig into the soil, study the quiet lessons of the garden, and often find that the earth has something to teach us about patience, timing, and care. Today we are talking about a disappointment that almost every homeowner, gardener, or small farmer has faced at some point. You buy a good bag of grass seed. Maybe it was not cheap. You spend your weekend spreading it carefully over the thin, bare, tired-looking patches of your lawn. You water it. You wait. You keep checking the ground, hoping to see those first tiny green shoots pushing through, and then nothing happens. 12 days pass, then 14. Maybe even a full month goes by, and still not one fresh blade of grass breaks through the soil. The same patchy, dry, empty ground is still staring back at you. If you have been through that, you are not alone. And more importantly, it does not mean you failed. In most cases, the problem is not lack of effort. The problem is that the seed was never given the right conditions to connect with the soil and begin its work. Spreading seed over bare spots and simply hoping it will grow is a little like throwing seed onto a hard sidewalk and expecting a pasture to appear. So today we are going to look closely at why overseeding fails. We will walk through the agronomy, the soil conditions, and the hidden life of seeds, breaking it down into 7 important reasons your grass seed may not have grown. And as we move through each one, I want you to notice something deeper too. Many of the same lessons that help a seed grow also apply to the things we try to grow in our own lives. Let's get our hands dirty. Part 1, the illusion of contact. Seed to soil intimacy reason number 1. The seed never truly touched the soil. For grass seed to germinate properly, one of the most basic requirements is direct, steady contact with mineral soil. That contact is what allows the seed to absorb moisture, swell, wake up, and eventually send a tiny root down into the ground. Without that close connection, the seed may be present on the lawn, but it is not really connected to the place where growth begins. This is one of the most common mistakes I see when people overseed. They scatter seed across a tired lawn and assume the seed will somehow find its way down. But if the lawn has a thick layer of thatch, the seed can get trapped above the soil. Thatch is that spongy layer made of living and dead stems, roots, and old plant material. When it gets too thick, it becomes a barrier. The seed sits inside that dry, organic mat instead of resting against the real soil underneath. A little humidity may be enough to make the seed crack open. But then the trouble begins. The new root, called the radicle, is extremely delicate. It needs to push into moist soil quickly. If it only meets a dry, tangled layer of dead grass and stems, it cannot anchor itself. The seedling dries out and dies before it ever has a chance to become a blade of grass. Compacted soil creates a similar problem. Heavy clay soil in areas with a lot of foot traffic often become hard and sealed at the surface. To a new seedling, that compacted layer can feel almost like a crust. Many people think, I'll just add sand to loosen this clay. But mixing a small amount of sand into clay can actually make the soil denser, almost like a concrete-like blend that new roots struggle to enter. Unless sand is added in a very high proportion, you are often making the problem worse, not better. The solution is preparation. Before overseeding, the lawn often needs some form of mechanical help. That may mean aerating, dethatching, or scarifying so the seed has open pathways to reach the soil. Seed does not grow because we simply throw it down. It grows when we create the right contact. And there is a lesson in that for us too. How often do we try to plant new habits, new relationships, or new ideas on top of our own layers of emotional thatch? We scatter good intentions over a hardened, compacted heart, worn down by the traffic of daily life, and then wonder why nothing takes root. Before anything meaningful can grow, we have to clear the debris. We have to open the surface. We have to allow real connection. Part 2, the breath of season, thermodynamics and timing reason number 2. The earth simply was not ready. Grass seed does not germinate just because the air feels pleasant. Germination is controlled by what is happening in the soil. More specifically, it depends heavily on soil temperature. That is why the first warm day of spring can be misleading. You may feel ready to repair the lawn, but the soil may still be too cold for the seed to begin growing. When soil temperature is below about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, many grass seeds will simply sit there. They remain dormant, exposed on the ground, while moisture, fungus, rot, and birds slowly reduce their chance of survival. The seed is not refusing to grow. It is waiting for the right conditions. But the longer it sits unprotected, the more risks it faces. Cool season grasses such as Kentucky bluegrass and tall fescue usually perform best when soil temperatures are around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That range gives the seed the warmth it needs to activate, while also supporting strong early root development. This is why timing matters so much. Overseeding is not just about spreading seed. It is about working with the rhythm of the season. For many regions, late summer into early fall is the most reliable window. The soil is still holding warmth from summer, the air begins to cool, and weed pressure naturally starts to decline. Those three conditions together give new grass a much better chance. Warm soil wakes the seed, cooler air reduces stress. Fewer weeds mean less competition for light, water, and nutrients. This is where many lawns fail before the seed even has a fair chance. We often rush because we want quick results. We see thin patches, we feel the urge to fix them immediately, and we act before the soil is ready. But nature does not respond to our impatience. It responds to conditions. And again, there is a quiet life lesson here. We often want to force growth simply because we feel ready. We want the new chapter, the new habit, the new beginning to happen now. But healthy growth depends on the environment around us, not just the desire inside us. Sometimes the wisest and most productive thing you can do is wait until the soil of your life has warmed to the right temperature. Part 3, the delicate dance of thirst. Moisture dynamics reason number 3. Inconsistent moisture, one of the quietest killers of new grass. Water is what wakes a seed up. Once moisture enters the seed and activates the enzymes that begin breaking down the stored starch inside, the process has started. From that moment, the seed is committed. It cannot simply pause and wait for better conditions. If the seed bed dries out during that critical first 10 to 14 days, even for one hot afternoon, the tiny embryo can die before it ever becomes visible above the soil. This is why overseeding cannot be treated like watering an established lawn. You cannot soak the area once in the morning and assume the job is done. Before seeding, the soil should be watered deeply enough to create a reserve of moisture below the surface. After the seed is down, the goal changes. Now you need light, frequent watering to keep the top half-inch of soil consistently damp, often 3 or 4 times a day depending on weather, soil type, and sun exposure. But timing matters. Watering during intense afternoon heat can put fragile seeds under stress and, in extreme conditions, almost cook them against the warm surface. Watering too late in the evening can leave the seedbed wet overnight, which opens the door to fungal problems. The best approach is steady, gentle moisture, applied at the right times, without flooding or neglecting the seed. And there is a lesson here as well. When we begin something new, whether it is a project, a passion, or a season of healing, it needs consistent care. We cannot pour all our energy into it one day and abandon it the next. Consistency is the moisture that allows fragile beginnings to become real growth. Part 4, the starving ground, nutrients and soil fuel reason number 4. The soil has run out of fuel. Even when grass seed germinates successfully, that young seedling still needs food to keep growing. Many established lawns become depleted over time, especially when organic matter is not returned to the soil. After 3 to 7 years, a lawn can lose a surprising amount of fertility. Every time grass clippings are bagged and leaves are removed, nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are taken away from the system instead of being recycled back into it. At first, a seedling survives on the stored energy inside the seed. But once those internal reserves are used up, it needs nutrients from the soil, especially readily available phosphorus near the surface. Phosphorus plays an important role in early root growth, cell division, and strong establishment. The challenge is that many modern starter fertilizers contain little or no phosphorus because of regulations meant to protect waterways from algal blooms. That means your new grass may depend almost entirely on what is already present in the soil. Some people try to improve poor soil by adding fresh wood chips, sawdust, or other uncomposted material. But fresh carbon can create another problem. As soil microbes break it down, they multiply quickly and use up available nitrogen in the process. This is called nitrogen immobilization, and it can leave young grass seedlings hungry at the exact moment they need nutrients most. The lesson is simple but important. We cannot keep taking from the soil and expect endless growth without giving anything back. The same is true in life. We work, give, produce, and push forward, but new growth cannot survive on empty reserves. To keep growing, we have to rest, learn, reflect, and replenish our own soil. Part 5, the invisible walls. Chemical interferences. Reason number 5. The very defenses meant to protect your lawn may be keeping new grass from growing. If you applied a synthetic pre-emergent herbicide in spring to prevent crabgrass, such as protamine, you may have created a chemical barrier in the soil. These products are designed to stop unwanted seedlings, but they do not always separate the weeds from the grass seed you actually want. In many cases, the grass seed can still begin to germinate, but the moment that tender new root tip breaks through the seed coat and reaches the treated layer, growth is disrupted. Cell division slows or stops, the root cannot develop, and the seedling dies before it has any real chance. That is why timing matters so much after using pre-emergent products. Many of these chemicals remain active in the soil for months. If you spread new grass seed during that active window, the result can be complete failure, even if your watering, seed quality, and soil preparation were all done correctly. Broadleaf weed killers can create problems too. If they are applied too close to seeding time, either before or after planting, they can be very harsh on immature grass seedlings. So before overseeding, always think back to what has been applied to the lawn. Sometimes the problem is not the seed, the weather, or the watering. Sometimes the soil is still carrying the memory of a chemical treatment. And there is a deeper lesson in this. In life, we often build defenses to protect ourselves from pain, disappointment, or the weeds we do not want growing around us. But if we make our inner world too guarded, too closed, too chemically protected, we may also prevent new joy, trust, and love from taking root. Sometimes, to grow something beautiful, we have to accept the risk that a few weeds may appear along the way. Part 6, the Trojan horse in the bag, seed quality and labels, reason number 6. You did not know what was hiding inside the bag. Not every bag of grass seed is the same. A cheap bag from the bargain shelf may look like a good deal at first, but it can carry problems you will be fighting for years. This is why the label matters. By law, grass seed bags include a seed analysis tag, and one of the most important things to check is the pure live seed percentage. That number tells you much more than the colorful picture on the front of the bag ever will. Even a very small amount of unwanted seed can create a big problem. If a 25-pound bag contains just 1% undesirable crop seed, such as coarse agricultural ryegrass, that can mean tens of thousands of unwanted seeds being spread across your lawn. Once those seeds are scattered, they do not stay neatly in one place. They compete with the grass you wanted, create uneven texture, and can leave the lawn looking rough, patchy, and full of aggressive unwanted growth. This is why high-quality seed is worth the extra attention. Whenever possible, look for Blue Tag certified seed. That certification helps confirm genetic purity and keeps weed seed contamination extremely low. For a lawn, pasture, or any planted area, clean seed gives you a cleaner start. You should also be careful with heavily coated seeds marketed as water-saving or easier to establish. Some coatings can make up a large part of the bag's total weight, meaning you may be buying less actual seed than you think. That coating can also slow imbibition, the process where the seed absorbs water, swells, and begins to open. Instead of waking up quickly in good soil, the seed has to work through an added artificial layer before it can grow. The lesson here is simple. Read the label. What you plant matters. And the same is true in life. Be careful with what you consume, whether it is food, information, media, or the people you allow close to your heart. Even a small amount of toxicity, if repeated often enough, can spread through your peace of mind. Learn to read the label of your life before you let anything take root. Part 7, the blanket of grace. Top dressing and care, reason number 7, the seed was left exposed. If there is one step that often separates successful overseeding from disappointment, it is top dressing. After the seed is spread, a thin, even layer of quality compost or peat moss can make a tremendous difference. You are not trying to bury the seed deeply. You are simply giving it a light protective cover, about a 1/4 inch, so it can stay moist, safe, and connected to the soil. That thin layer acts almost like life support for new grass. It helps protect the seed from birds, reduces the stress of temperature swings, and holds moisture near the surface where the seed needs it most. Compost can also improve the seedbed by adding organic matter and supporting microbial life. Peat moss has a useful visual signal as well. When it is moist, it turns dark brown. When it dries, it becomes pale and tan, almost telling you that the seedbed is thirsty. But even this helpful material has to be managed correctly. If peat moss dries out completely, it can become hydrophobic, meaning it resists water. When that happens, instead of helping the seed, it can pull moisture away from it and make germination harder. So the protective layer must be kept consistently damp, especially during those early days when the seed is waking up. The key is balance. Cover the seed, but do not smother it. Grass seed needs protection, moisture, and soil contact, but it should not be buried so deeply that it struggles to emerge. A good top dressing is like a gentle blanket, not a heavy lid. And that gives us one final lesson. When we begin a fragile new chapter in life, we cannot leave it completely exposed to criticism, pressure, and doubt. New beginnings need protection. They need supportive people, steady habits, and a safe environment. Sometimes what helps us grow is not force, but a simple blanket of grace. Outro nature is one of the most honest teachers we will ever have. It does not argue, flatter, or pretend. It simply responds to the conditions we provide. So if your grass seed did not grow, do not take it as a personal failure. Take it as feedback from the soil. Something in the environment was missing or out of balance. Maybe the seed never touched the soil. Maybe the timing was wrong. Maybe the moisture was inconsistent. The nutrients were depleted. The chemicals were still active. The seed quality was poor, or the seed was left exposed without protection. The good news is that every one of these problems can be improved. You can prepare the soil. You can create better seed-to-soil contact. You can check the soil temperature before planting. You can water with consistency. You can rebuild fertility. You can avoid harmful chemical timing. You can choose cleaner seed. And you can finish the job with a light, protective layer of top dressing. When we work with the rhythm of nature instead of rushing against it, the results can be remarkable. A patchy lawn can become green again. A tired piece of ground can come back to life. And when we apply those same principles of patience, preparation, nourishment, and protection to our own lives, that is when we begin to flourish too. Thank you for walking through the garden with me today. If you found a little wisdom in the soil, give this video a like, subscribe to Earthly Delights, and share it with someone who may be struggling with their lawn, or maybe with a season of growth in their own life. Until next time, keep your hands dirty, your heart open, and your soil rich. Make it a great day to grow.